I met what I would call an intentional community in 1984 when I was around 23. So it's quite a while ago. And for me, the amazing experience was that I met people who were on the one side. I mean, they were so alive and shiny, bright eyes. And I said, wow, what an amazing group of people. And they were interested in politics, in spirituality. At that time, in love, relationship, sexuality. And we were dancing and singing and working in the garden. And so that, wow, before, when I was studying in a big town in Germany, in Cologne, and my life was somehow scattered into pieces. One evening I had a group with politics, and another evening I had a group with my women's meeting, and all this were somehow different boxes. And the amazing experience in community is that you do all this together and you share values. I mean, of course, we all know that we share values, but we live values. And that was a huge discovery, that there are so many like-minded people. And at that time, Dieter Doom, who now lives in Tamera, he was the head, definitely, of this community. And he had such a deep vision of what does it mean to really create peace. So I would say my approach to eco-villages is not the ecological aspect in the forefront, but more the question, how do we really create peace with all living beings? And living beings are not just human beings. No, it's also the animal world and the plant world and the spirits and all the invisible beings. And he somehow taught us that we are part of a huge universe, not just planet Earth, and that it really matters how we contribute to, let's say, peace or cooperation with the living world. He was the founder of that community I joined in 84. At that time, it was a smaller community in southern Germany with about 40 people living together. And from that, ZEGG grew after a while, and also out of this pioneer group, later on also Tamera derived. So there we also worked with permaculture, and we built the first plant-based sewage plants to treat our wastewater. And so we did all these ecological things because for us it was so natural that we, of course, want to be friendly with nature, and that we want to live on a very little footprint, as little as possible. And of course, at that time, we also heard of the Club of Rome report. I think it was years ago when they reported first in which direction the environment is going, and that it is a man-made crisis we are entering in. And Dieter Doom, he said, we need the inner work and we need outer work to heal the planet. And that it's so much depending on our attitude, what we do and how we do it. I was already living at ZEGG. So in 1995, we heard of the conference at Findhorn, where GEN was founded in 95. But at that time, I don't know why we didn't go. I think it was also a financial question. We didn't want to fly and all this stuff. So what we heard of it. And we thought, wow, yeah, that is amazing. That's exactly the idea we are also somehow pursuing, that we need a global network of like-minded people who are doing the healing work all around the globe. And so in 96, it was the founding of Gen Europe in Germany at Lebensgarten Steierberg with Declan Kennedy, who was already at that time a dear friend also of ZEGG and many people there. And so Achim went to participate at this, to found Gen Europe. And I remember of his sharings that there were long discussions whether to call it Ecovillage or how to frame the network, because at that time for us, Ecovillage was very much coming from the environmental approach. And for us, it was also so important to include this inner work. Now, not just doing the outer things, which are definitely needed, no question, no doubts about it. So for us, that was the core, that we need this somehow, we could call it the inner spiritual work, but also really work between human beings.
Yeah.
And to give each other feedback and to listen to each other and to learn what kind of impact do I have and how do I affect other people, and am I aware of my emotions and all this kind of stuff. I personally got then into contact with Jan in 2001 when Achim and I went to our first meeting gathering in Poland. And interesting, it was also that from ZEGG, we also did a kind of international community gathering. And then there was also the ICSA, which was also this year again happening in the same country. At that time, it was that the ICSA conference was happening at ZEGG, and which was also an amazing experience for us to meet all these community people. And for example, the kibbutzniks who had 50 years of community experience, I thought, wow, amazing. There was also this historical depth that people, especially from Israel, but also from other countries, but who were Jewish, and some for the first time came to Germany again after the Holocaust and all this Third Reich things that happened. And also some of the Israelis said, no, we can't imagine coming to Germany again. And then we were sitting together and we somehow thought, wow, there is this elephant in the room. And then we did a forum, how it felt to reconnect and to see the history, and now to meet on a new base in a way, because we thought, wow, we are all caring for community. And so this was really an amazing moment. This was really deep. And it was also the first time that this conference was happening on the ground of a real community. Before, it was always in universities. So also being held by a community was also for the ICSA people an amazing, beautiful experience. Maybe you are surprised, but on one level, I would say it hasn't changed so much, because we were always, I would say, a kind of movement in a way parallel to mainstream society, reaching out, of course, to mainstream society to build bridges or to inspire. I would call it our affluent society. And when I was in my 20s, I thought our society would develop step by step into, let's call it a better society, a more sustainable society with less war and so on, and more awareness. And on one level, people say, yeah, it has developed into that, because 40 years ago when I was a student, there was one organic food store in a big city, and now you find it everywhere and in supermarkets. So there was a shift, and still the direction we are heading into since latest the globalization, this is really painful to see. And so I still see the Ecovillage movement as a very political movement, waving the flag to say, hey, here's the direction we need to go, using less and using what we have here in the region, or let's say maybe in the country, or let's make the transport ways as short as possible, and let's learn to live with what we have, no? And so I see the Ecovillage movement still really waving the flag. There is a good life really possible. And for me, this meeting Ecovillage people was always like meeting family. And maybe that is also for many of us this relief. Wow, it is that people do live their values.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, Achim and I, we did a trip to South America, and there I don't remember if at that time it was already CASA or not. So it was I think in 2008,
stage, yeah. Okay.
we visited a big Call of the Condor meeting in Colombia. And my Spanish was really poor at that time, so I couldn't really communicate in Spanish. But meeting these people there was so much also, no? Like coming home and seeing their attitudes and building and eating ecologically. So I thought to Achim, wow, it is so much like we're doing it in Europe. The facilitator of the meeting asked me, well, what do you think could the European Ecovillage movement offer to the Southern or Latin American movement? And at that time, we already had developed the EDE course.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer at that time was, yeah, I think we are a bit further ahead in developing Ecovillage based education. And I also saw this as an amazing tool to bring people into existing ecovillages.
Mm-hmm.
So also mainstream society can see, wow, there are so many solutions already there. It's just not known in the mainstream society, no? But it's not a lack of solutions. There is this very simple saying that we can only care about what we love, and it's so simple. And so I think one message is really, how can we deepen love inside of each one of us, and how can we deepen our compassion to become aware of what is happening. And I'm grateful, for example, today that I really feel refreshed and connected and not stressful right now. And just that we have the luxury of this, that we can be aware of how are we. No? And so I also think what enriched the Ecovillage movement is the wisdom of the trauma. And so I'm also inspired that right now there is another collective trauma summit running by Thomas Hübel, now also with Kosha and Robin involved. Because one challenge I see is that we think we could heal just doing, I do it my way, and to really accept the dependency on other people. And for example, I'm a woman, I grew up with feminism in the 70s and 80s, and it was really important to be an autonomous woman, and dependency was a no-go. I mean, we also want to find, of course, healthy ways of dependency, but to accept that we cannot do it alone. And this is a deep thing, because in our modern society, we are so infiltrated by this thought of being a powerful individual, and with strong elbows, we can achieve whatever we want. And I think that's a lie. No?
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think almost nobody of us grew up with that deep trust in people. No, we all experienced betrayal and whatever. We experienced the loss of trust. And so one big challenge is how to regain real trust, where we can really, that I trust you so much that I know I'm dependent on you, and I need you and you need me. And that's a responsibility also, no?
Mm-hmm.
For me, at least, that's a responsibility, that I don't do my healing work just for myself, but because it's also a field work. Also in the Ecovillage world, we get lost in all the urgencies that there are outside. Especially and it is burning. I mean, no, Greta Thunberg is absolutely right, no, when she is angry and says our house is on fire. Yes. And still, I am deeply convinced that it needs this inner opening up and this,
Deep trust in those around you, which is what it's going to take, very much so.
And also that includes that we sometimes have to look at the very ugly, nasty aspects inside of us. And nobody likes to do that. Also, I don't like to do it.
I had a few visitors on Monday. I'm very glad they've left.
And now how can we approach these difficult aspects inside of each one of us in dignity and respect? And so that is my deepest challenge, I would say, in Ecovillages. We need to learn to open up completely and to really let us see what is inside, all the fears, all the anger, all the trauma, step by step. I mean, not at once, but that's the journey. In accordance to the crisis outside, we need also to give more energy to our opening up inside. And what is happening is the opposite. Now we are so afraid that we are closing more and more, which is deeply understandable. It feels scary, of course. And so that is, I think, the riddle that we need to solve. And also to remember to get all our inner members back on start. I share one little story also. Just last week, another friend, she wanted to challenge me a bit, and she said, do you really think that inner work will stop climate change? And then of course we both, I mean, I was laughing. And then I said, of course, because we can deeply see what happens when there is no inner work happening and people are just running like whatever, robots or so, machines. And we would come to different activities if all people would do more inner work. No? And for example, right now I'm here in the house where I grew up as a child, and my father is living here right now still. And he comes from a very Christian background. So before we start a meal, he prays. And when I was a child, I said, oh my God, is this horrible? And I didn't feel connected. And there is, of course, some truth also in that. But now I can see the beauty in it, how beautiful it is to start each meal that he prays. And then we somehow bless the food. And for me, that really makes a difference. And I'm grateful that he is still doing that. Achim and I both love to do is really to work with people and to empower them at the level they are. Empowering people to bring more light into life or more power into life, to empower each other. And of course, we also love to work with the issue of love and relationship, because that is one of the core issues. We are a couple for decades. And so there we are experts in a way also. What does it mean to really live a lasting, vivid relationship? And or what does it need to live friendship in a way? So it's not just a one-to-one relationship aspect. And so in a way, we use the work of Joanna Macy, or we use the work of Clinton Callahan with possibility management, or right now, recently, we just trained ourselves as integral constellations, systems constellation workers, which we also found profoundly deep, how to work with soul aspects. And I mean, it's about healing our soul in the essence, so that we can be more present at the places where we are needed. Because also my experience is, the deeper you go, you also touch the longing of people who would like to go deeper but are afraid of going deeper. And often this causes tension. And so the question is probably how to be with that tension in a fruitful way. And of course, I also believe that different intensities can live peacefully together.